Warning. The following podcast contains politics. Leftist politics. The whole truth, justice, and the American way thing. We live in a time where one has to post this. Progress is a dirty word, such as science and reason. My superheroes would weep. Alright guys, guys and girls, we're gonna start the DC Domingo podcast. And if you heard the disclaimer, this is going to be a very topical one, and we've had a very topical 2 to 3 weeks, I say. So, I would love to review, the DC Comics integration of Watchmen into the DC universe with the Button storyline. I would like to review some of the episodes for DC TV. And some of the other more exciting things, such as Injustice video game playthroughs and previews. But I think it's really important to, take the time to every once in a while make these kind of podcasts, especially because there's a lot of, clickbait articles. Kind of like journalism has been ruined in some countries because people do revenue-based news networks instead of fact-based. It's the same with new media. People have discovered how to monetize it instead of how to spread the truth. So, it's up to us fans to share the truth. And yes, like the disclaimer said, we are going to be talking about, leftist politics. Comes as a no-brainer, Superman is a social justice warrior, and therefore all superheroes tend to be that. The opposite of a social justice warrior, it's a unsocial injustice coward. Basically letting society get away with injustice because you're a coward and not calling them out. Not really sure why that phrase, social justice warrior, is a dirty word. Perhaps because some people have a tendency to, exaggerate some issues, and it has become dirty, where it used to be more relevant, If you don't want social justice warriors, make a better society. That's basically my take. So we are going to get heavily into that. Anyways, let's get started. Right into this. I've compared the juxtaposition of Superman and Barack Obama quite simply because both have received hatred for no apparent reason other than people don't want to see that in their icon. A very serious and thoughtful and inspirational icon dealing with heavy problems. It's kind of a bummer, and people just want a one-dimensional character. So whereas I view Superman as a multi-layered being in fiction, I tend to view this president of Barack Obama as a multi-layered person. And I have this picture because there was some controversy. The Filipino-American storyboard artist, J. Oliva, he's worked on several DC comic movies. He directed The Dark Knight Returns animated adaptation, which is pretty brilliant. It's one of his best works. He's also directed several DC movies and started doing storyboards for Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, and the anniversary of Superman's first publishing, he posted several art of his, dealing with, his stands, like how Superman should stand and hover and things like that. So he did a really cool post on Facebook, and someone decided to be mean to him, be like, hey, why don't you post art from a real Superman movie? So, a lot of us fans went to his Twitter account, and we had his back because he really defended, Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel. Just because this isn't your Superman and Barack Obama is not your kind of president doesn't mean they're not legitimate. So I tweeted him out a quote from Batman vs Superman, where it says, "Isn't it surprising that the most powerful man in the world would be a figure of controversy?" And that right there, it's a line straight from the movie that a lot of haters don't seem to get. And, he liked my tweet. So shout out to J. Oliva, because, I think he gets it. He understands that quite often haters online don't go to share what they love. They just go to share what they hate. Which is why, I don't really like to delve too much into these things like negativity, but there are some things that are just too stupid not to comment on. I have this wonderful group called Unite the Seven, and these are the people that I'd recommend. I have 3 YouTubers that are really awesome. I have 2 very reliable Twitter people, one Facebook and one Instagram, and these are all fans of DC. And mind you, when DC drops a ball, they do call him out, just like if you're not happy with Obama's drone policy, every liberal I know goes, yeah, you can criticize Obama on that without, lowering your standards, just because you can criticize something like that, it doesn't mean you hate it, it's not an absolute. So there you have it, Unite the Seven. So go ahead and follow those people. Most of the, the blogosphere revolves around these, as far as my opinion. The hardcore DC fans, we kind of tend to go there all the time. And, sometimes when I'm at work or at class and I see some really cool things shared on Twitter, I just take a snapshot of it. And that's why I tend to give out most of the credit, because these guys are amazing. Whenever they share something amazing, I'll share it with you guys and give the proper credit. And go ahead and, subscribe and follow and like these people, because these 7 are pretty damn awesome. Usually, this whole episode is going to be about an anti-DC people, us putting them in their place. So usually I have a segment called Taking Out the Trash, and this whole episode's going to be like that. So we're going to start off with a couple of fun things. There's a meme going around about how Jared Leto's Joker, he did a bunch of crazy stuff, and then juxtaposed to that is the actor who did The Punisher, where, somebody just made a snide comment of, well, he acted. So I corrected it with the, he also got paid. Sure, he could have gone the extra mile, but method acting is too hard to Google, especially for Marvel fans hating DC, which is pretty accurate. What Jared Leto did with the Joker is called method acting, but some people are too stupid to Google search that. They don't really take into account all kinds of acting. In my opinion, Jared Leto's acting as a Joker, it's pretty damn awesome. It mirrors the comic book. It mirrors the cartoon, Cesar Romero's goofiness, and even Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger and Mark Hamill as well. One of the wonderful things about Suicide Squad that I really love is that it's, for the first time, a director had the courage to rein in a performance. The past 2 Jokers have stolen the limelight from Batman every time, being Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger. This was the only instance where people were like, oh, I want more. But yeah, you do realize that in this movie, he's a +1. Harley Quinn is the protagonist. And I think that really angered a lot of the fans. Especially, those who pretend to be DC fans, and then you go to their Facebook page and it's all Marvel, and, closeted men's right activists who couldn't stand a woman like Harley Quinn being the protagonist and someone like the Joker being the +1. So yeah, I do believe that this Joker is pretty damn amazing. I also believe that it was he was in the movie the right amount of time. He's just as cool as, Boba Fett. If there is a Boba Fett movie, 2 hours, hey, more power to him. But every time Boba Fett comes up, people tend to forget anything that happens. Who are the other bounty hunters in that scene in Empire? I'm pretty sure some people know, but most are like, huh? So he's also kind of like as cool as like Darth Maul, that just shocks you with like the awesome look and fierceness, and I don't know, it's a force of nature. So you don't want to have a force of nature all the time in your movie, and I think that's great. Now the other movie that there's a meme that I seem to have rectified is the movie Logan. There is a lot of praise for it, well deserved. And I made this meme about having Wolverine actually wear an actual costume. It is something that it's almost like having a movie about Zorro and having him just wear white trunks and a wife beater and no mask, like Mr. Clean. Like Mr. Clean is not Zorro. So while Logan is pretty cool as a movie, it is kind of shying away from comic book elements. The X-Men franchise, sometimes for better or worse, has downplayed the amazing spectacle of superhero costumes and abilities for the sake of being more cinematically realistic. But sometimes it just has backfired in a negative way. So, for instance, I make the comment that even Jughead on Archie wears his crown. So where there's a will, there's a way. Hopefully with the reboot of Wolverine, he might wear a costume. Speaking of costumes, even some of the fans who call themselves DC fans, the Fortress of Nerditude on Facebook, they seem to mind, the tones of Man of Steel for something more brighter. Yet when you look at the Man of Iron over on Marvel, it's burgundy and gold instead of yellow and red. And I posted this easy fix. They posted the image on the left, I posted the image on the right, and they were pretty pissed off, didn't really reply. I got more likes when I posted it on Twitter with some of the Unite the 7 members. They seem to like it a lot. Because it's true. You look at the hues between the reds of Man of Steel and Iron Man, and the reds are completely the same. The yellows are completely the same. And somehow that's not called into questioning. So there you go. I mean, you have a little bit of a bias right there that it's pretty self-evident, if I may say so. The other bias is there was a fan poll on this Facebook page called DC versus Marvel Universe Comic on Verse. They basically rebooted the poll because DC was winning over Marvel. And speaking of polls, I want to give a shout out to the Star Wars fans, because quite frankly, they had Hasbro had a poll that who they wanted to make an action figure of. And in the expanded Star Wars universe, there's someone called Ben Skywalker, who Kylo Ren cheaply imitated. Spoiler alert. And Ben Skywalker, is pretty popular in expanded universe. Well, the fans voted, and apparently the powers that be took out the poll and replace the characters with whoever they wanted. This is a very anti-democratic move, and many fans are pissed off, because if you're going to make a poll, respect the votes and the will of the people. And this isn't just like, hardcore Star Wars fans. This is like all fans. All fans voted here. So shout out to those fighting the good fight. And just want to give a shout out to all the media that are blocking all the haters from DC Comics. One hater in particular is going to debut a Suicide Squad video. I know a buddy of mine who's going to that premiere. He was very happy to go, and I'm like, well, you don't have my approval. You're a grown-ass man. I mean, you can go if you want to, but I don't approve of this. And he asked why. And, I showed him this image that, if you're going to make fun of something, it'd be really nice to have Google and use it, because you will be upsetting people. This is pretty horrendous, and either this YouTuber didn't care to know or doesn't know to care. Either result does not excuse the outcome. And, all the fans went through this really, really horrible heartbreak with the Aurora cinema shooting. No one in their right mind would ever try to even do this. And the fact that he was totally unaware about it, that basically means that a giant massacre of comic book fans is no never mind to this person. Like that exists like in the back of his mind when it doesn't even like occur to him like, hey, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. So yeah, there you have it, guys. That's a little segment of taking out the trash. We are going to get into some more kind of lighthearted topics before we get to get some really, really serious ones in the end. One of them is over the weekend, my girlfriend and I watched Contact, and it's a wonderful movie. He's one of our really cool directors, and there is a rumor going on that he was in talks to direct a new Flash movie. One of the things that the media always does is that, for instance, if you have someone go to a job interview, these click-based websites will say he is applying for this job. And if that director's either schedule doesn't work out or his production company, can't back it up, because a lot of these directors have production companies that are attached to big banks, entrepreneurs, charities, people who are dumping millions of dollars into a production company for directors. It's kind of like sponsors for a TV show. So if Robert Zemeckis and its production company can't pick up the slack for a Flash movie, he might decide not to do it. And then the one who looks bad is Warner Brothers, even though these clickbait articles and so-called journalists don't report about that. For instance, when Matt Reeves was in talks to direct the new Batman trilogy or solo film, nobody mentioned anything about scheduling or contracts or production company costs. He was all like anti-Warner Brothers. So, while I'm really happy that Robert Zemeckis will be in the DC universe, he is in talks with a lot of other directors as well. So it was a giant meeting. They're getting ready to announce a lot of contracts with Comic-Con coming up. And I am excited either way. The fact that someone with a high caliber as Robert Zemeckis is being considered makes me really happy, instead of seeing a bunch of, directors who direct, TV episodes that haven't really, garnished enough merit. So kudos. Very, very happy. The other funny thing is that one of our very least persons retweeted this thing from Shant Collins about Aquaman's trident. Now, if you go to, I don't really condone go into this channel. Comic Book Girl 119 made this funny video that she's not a DC or Marvel fan. Within the video, she did say that she likes the X-Men. That's like someone who's like, well, I'm not a black or white person, but I like Europeans. It's like, well, it's like, dude. So I think she discredited herself as being non-biased there. But anyways, this person, Sean, says he's complaining about Aquaman's trident having two supportive, pointy things on the side, making it a 5, blaming Zack Snyder. And here's an action figure from late 70s, early 80s that I had as a child from the Super Friends. And interesting story, I lost this toy when we took a trip to a park in Mexico. They had a tiny river. I never played with Aquaman because we didn't have some cool river in my house. So when I had the opportunity to go to a park that had a nice river, I was like, yay, I'm gonna play with Aquaman, and the current took him away from me. Yeah, it's pretty sad. But anyways, here we have the Aquaman Trident with three main point things and two support ones. So again, it's the age of idiocracy. It seems people just tweeting alternative facts in the guise of opinion that are meant to be legitimate and not questioned. However, I want to give a big shout out to Comic Book Debate, because they've been calling these people out all the time. I haven't seen the Lego Movie. I know there's for kids, but I don't know. I don't feel like paying $3 in my cheap theater. I'm just gonna pay $3 when I rent it on Xbox, so I can have like a beer or something. It'd be a more comfortable experience. Well, anyways, they have this screen capture of a contributor, Eric Kane. Now, the thing with most media websites is that they downsize journalism. So what they do is that they have these pop culture contributors who are basically glorified fanboys. Some can be good, some can be pretty horrible. So, for instance, I've already stated that comparing a kid's movie like Lego Batman to an adult movie like Batman v Superman, it's kind of ridiculous. But, that didn't stop good old Eric. Well, Comic Book Debate didn't go along with that narrative and posted that, that movie hasn't really made a lot of money. Compared to Batman v Superman, obviously. But the media would tell you that the Lego movie is a very, very huge success with large crowds. Another thing, I always talk about things that I love. I mentioned before that PowerLess, a TV show, wasn't up to my standards as far as taste. I didn't feel the need that we would like that. I think that as a DC fan, I would have rather seen Booster Gold and Blue Beetle buddy comedy as far as a TV show. I mean, that would have been not only satisfactory, but also makes sense within comic book continuity. So, they were praising Powerless with humor. They're like, oh yeah, it proves that DC TV is better than their movies. Well, guess what happened over the weekend? Looks like Powerless is canceled. Quite frankly, because if you're ridiculing your base, why? Why would we even go see your TV show? That's like an abusive relationship. Like I said, me as a Mexican, I'm never gonna win over Bill O'Reilly, who is now fired. So, why would I even submit myself to such an abusive relationship when, quite frankly, it's like I'd rather get my facts from real news networks, instead of a bloated bigot. So yeah, Powerless, didn't appeal to the base. Yeah, and it doesn't really appeal to pretty much anybody else. So maybe with the new channel they're launching, we can have some more episodes like these, kind of like the British do, where they do maybe 3 or 4 episodes every year or so, just to kind of wrap it up and have time and creativeness between shows. Who knows, right? Yeah, so Powerless has been canceled. And, it's kind of a shame because we have great actors there. I'm sure the creative team didn't want this. But like I said, you can't really blame your base for not supporting something that you're going to be mocking, the next agenda, what we're going to do is we're still about a month, for Wonder Woman to be released. And I started to notice one guy in particular in our Facebook posts, in our Facebook groups, he was getting antsy about Wonder Woman marketing. The Flightcast actually came up with this 2 weeks ago. It's so it's still a bit early for Hollywood marketing to commence. Usually they do it within a month. 1 month prior to release, they start amping up with the promotions and things like that. One of the things nobody really seemed to comment on is that last year at Comic-Con, Wonder Woman received one of the biggest commercial showcases, not only as being stealing the show from Batman vs. Superman, but also because it featured a limited edition Barbie, only available at Comic-Con. If you went to Comic-Con, that's like the mecca for pop culture, and it was the most prized item. You would have made like thousands of dollars if you had that doll. And that media buzz started a year ago. All right. So they have been doing a lot of, promotions and things like that. Every Wonder Woman Wednesday, the official Wonder Woman Twitter handle gives out free prizes. So I was kind of, very, very nice to this guy. Other people blocked him because he was posting in multiple groups. Where's the marketing? And I asked him, like, well, I noticed that you're posting this before the clickbait hater websites posted it. What's up? And looks like I was wrong. The clickbait hater pages posted it first, and that's where he got it from. But if you go to Google, and type in Wonder Woman TV spot, you get a lot of hits. And, one thing that you have to remember is that, most of these TV spots might be like number 4, number 5, number 6, but they're featured in every country and in every language, So while you say, well, there's only like 6 here in the States, but, there's other nations too. So Wonder Woman has a lot of media coverage, and according to Variety, if I'm not mistaken, Wonder Woman marketing spending by Warner Brothers is outpacing Suicide Squad. So Suicide Squad had a ton of marketing and tons of A-list actors and actresses. So there was a lot of marketing for Suicide Squad, and Warner Brothers is spending more money on Wonder Woman. So the whole claim that there isn't any marketing is completely ludicrous. Now, again, shout out to the Flightcast. They showed us, and I think I showed you guys this this picture last podcast of this editor of UpRoXX, saying that DC needs to kiss ass to journalists like him. I don't call him journalists, but that's what he likes to think of himself as. So he wants to get, invited to these premiere parties and have expensive wine and exclusives where he can make money by putting it out there on his website. Well, UpRoXX has been one of the people behind this. There is no Wonder Woman marketing. And I took the liberty of doing something really fun. All right, so this is the UpRoXX Twitter page. I'm going to scroll down just because I want you guys to see that it's real life and I'm not editing anything. I apologize if it's kind of like, dizzying. But, I want you guys to know that you guys can trust this podcast. So they were the ones to do one of those stupid articles that say, oh yeah, they're not spending a lot of money on Wonder Woman. And, here it is. They're covering a lot of media. They seem to not have a pretty good grasp on particular things. So look below, Google Wonder Woman, Google Wonder Woman, Google. Okay. So let's click on what the people are saying, right? And I took the liberty to reply to them. I posted the picture of, oh, hey, when in doubt, Google search is your friend. And I posted that picture that I shared with you guys with all the hits that you get when you type in Wonder Woman TV spot into YouTube. Yeah. So it's about almost 5 million. I'm sure there's variations of Wonder Woman and, in different languages and stuff. So that's one thing I posted. And then I also tagged W Magazine, the official W Magazine, who features a very similar looking lady. And I was like, is that Gal Gadot? So yes, that is Gal Gadot. So if you go to W Magazine on Twitter, boom, you get a nice picture featured in W Magazine. Now, maybe UpRoXX doesn't use Google, but, hey, maybe they should at least give it a shot. I mean, after all, below some of their Wonder Woman coverage, there is an article about Google. Like, how thick can you be, right? You had something about Google before Wonder Woman, and you can't bother to Google merchandise for Wonder Woman. So the other thing I did was, oh look, a giant car by a giant star in a giant race. It's Danica Patrick. She is going to be running the Wonder Woman official car. How cool is that? I also showed him the new, there were two, actually, my mistake, 2 Wonder Woman TV spots. Wonder Woman is featured in Pink Berry. You see Ray Fisher, who does Cyborg. He's in Pink Berry eating ice cream. And look, Dr. Pepper, Barbie, the app, the toys, and everything. And look, right below Wonder Woman, it's Google. Wonder Woman, Google. Wonder Woman, Google. Oh, look. Danica Patrick's Wonder Woman car is on fire. So, UpRoXX, it's sports retweeted by UpRoXX official. How thick can they be? They're just lying to themselves right there on Twitter. So, yeah. Do I think UpRoXX is very legitimate? No. I think that if you were to do this on a legitimate business, you would be fired. So, yeah. So, what do you guys think of that video, huh? Yeah, UpRoXX sounds like Fox News. Another really classy thing, speaking of Fox News, I call this the whitewashing of the whitewashing. Newsarama reports that Marvel's legacy project brings back original numbering, hope, wonder, and enjoyment and fun in a beloved mainstay. Sounds a lot like I Want My Country Back. Looks like, yeah, and what kind of a mess we're on right now, the brink of World War III. Yeah, so this is a little preview of a video that it has been difficult to make because it's a very difficult subject. Basically, Marvel Comics blamed minorities in the center stage for not selling enough books. So, for instance, we have Falcon. He's now Captain America. So we have an African-American Captain America. Jane Foster. Previous scientist. She's now Thor. This was done because Natalie Portman didn't want to make the Thor movies. And Marvel Comics is like, oh, really? Because we just made your character the main Thor. Hint, hint. You should come and play Thor for 3 movies now. So now we have female Thor. And then also Mark Ruffalo, he's doing activism, which is pretty awesome. He is getting older. He might not play the Hulk. So, Marvel's like, hey, let's make an Asian Hulk. And that's what we got, which is pretty damn cool. And we have a lot of these, characters that were marketed to white baby boomers as more appealing than DC Comics, with the tagline, not your father's superheroes. Well, that only worked for a little bit. And the thing with DC characters is that they're mythic, and mythology transcends gender, race, and orientation, and a lot of, other labels. So Marvel was doing the right thing in making their Avengers more varied, but they went about it a little bit differently. And for instance, I'm Mexican American, and there is a really awesome character named Jaime Reyes, who is a newcomer to DC Comics. He became the Blue Beetle. However, his books didn't sell very, very well, and I liked it, but a lot of people didn't buy the book. When Jaime Reyes was placed on Young Justice animated TV show, he was part of a larger group with a really great storyline. So the storyline is what made Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes, amazing and appealing to not just me, but everybody else. So it was a great story that makes characters really amazing and relatable. Currently, right now, we're going to get the second iteration of Blue Beetle, a white guy, Ted Kord, but we're also going to have Jaime Reyes as Blue Beetle. For us Mexican Americans, that's pretty awesome. And if you ever watch wrestling, icons pass their legacy, kind of like that. They have Junior, the second iteration of the icon, which is pretty awesome. And for instance, the first Robin became Batman briefly. That's pretty cool. That makes sense. It's within the story. If Dick Grayson, was another race, amazing. Nobody would say anything. He's earned it. Falcon has earned being Captain America. There's nothing wrong with that. It's organic, and it's several years, in the making. Same thing with Damian Wayne. He's a little feisty guy, right? Pretty much everyone knows that he will become the next Batman, and that's cool. It's organic and it's part of the story. One of the problems is that Marvel failed to make good stories. A minority being a character became the story, and that's how you do injustice to the character. We're not like token chess pieces that you can just shove to the board and be like, look, we have one. we have one of you guys. Yeah. So they blame, Marvel Comics blame minorities for not selling books, and that kind of goes back to the Marvel movie executive who said female superheroes don't sell well. If Warner Brothers followed that rule, they wouldn't have made Steel, Spawn, Blade, which is a Marvel property but through New Line Cinema, which is owned by Warner Brothers, and, the Catwoman movie with Halle Berry. 4 African-American superheroes, they took a gamble. Had they waited until, we're just going to wait until African-Americans are, in superhero forums, make money to make movies, there's, we wouldn't have had those movies. Whether or not they're successful or not, Warner Brothers put faith in minorities, and, it has been paying off. Again, the Flightcast with an amazing, post over here, Meanwhile, at DC Rebirth, we have 7 female lead character books, a multicultural duo pair of Green Lanterns. One is Latina, one is Muslim from Michigan, and we have a Chinese Superman. Now, how cool is that? And DC Comics Rebirth has been selling pretty well. Not because the minorities are the story, but because the stories are the story. One thing that I want to share is that 40% of graphic novels and comic readers are between the ages of 18 and 25. 5% are under the age of 17 and 16, and are between the ages of 26 and 33. So more graphic comics readers are over the age of 45 are women, and under the 45 are men. So I think what they're also missing the point is that variety is for everybody. When I grew up in Mexico, everybody read comics. Comics are the gateway drug to literacy. in some rural parts of Mexico when, people just couldn't afford to not work, they had to go to work instead of going to school. They ended up learning how to speak Spanish through the comics because, you see the picture, you can kind of follow the story, and you see, sparse words every once in a while. We had genres, lots of genres. And I think that's one of the things that, as manga from Japan comes into the States, it has spring forwarded the awesome notion that comics are not superhero spandex only. Comics are a genre, and they have to be diverse. So I know this is a very, very large topic, and I want to share two pictures. I wish I had a much better resolution of both, or the the artist name. If you, I will try and get it for you guys when I make my podcast just about this, because there's so much more to tell. On the left and on the right, you have the old-fashioned Captain America, shielding the U.S. against bigotry, crime, injustice, intolerance, censorship, exploitation, terrorism, despotism. And on the right, you have the new Captain America with a very, very different flag, who is guarding the flag against Islam, globalism, immigration, degeneracy, communism, political correctness, terrorism, and Jews. So it's a very controversial picture when you juxtapose both of them. And I think it kind of shows you that what the comics and social justice warriors and what our heroes in the comics stood for, on the left. And then over here on the right, you kind of see what the appropriation of the fringe right currently is. And if you want to know why Marvel is blaming, minorities for not selling comics, is because one of their executives is on this extreme right, kind of a Trump supporter. So yeah, we will have more on this when I do a full episode on this. The other cool thing that we want to talk about is Rotten Tomatoes got caught twice with these pictures over here. And I think that's the same person, Jake Wilson, posting the same review in two different outlets. One for The Age in Australia, and then the other Sydney Morning Herald. Now, our Rotten Tomatoes makes their own rules, but that's like double dipping. That's like someone in an election voting twice. Like I asked before, does Rotten Tomato allow this kind of thing to happen? We're like, hey, who likes Marvel? Let's get him to review as many reviews as we can. And even then, I showed you the review for Iron Fist from, I think it was a magazine in the UK, where they pretty much trashed it, but Rotten Tomatoes gave it a fresh review. Well, guess what? We have more confirmation of that. And again, the Flightcast. Awesome people on Facebook. Follow them. So we have 3 reviews. Screen Crush, The Popcorn Junkie, and Time Out. So 3 reviews trash Guardians of the Galaxy, but Rotten Tomatoes made it fresh. Yeah, that's how they do it. It's kind of like the Star Wars poll, where basically they elect who wins and who loses. All right, we got one more topic, and that's going to be Ed for a very, very lengthy podcast. And this one's pretty, I would say, it's bittersweet. Currently, there is a movement to get Karen Bradley. She has waited her entire life for a Wonder Woman movie. She's stage 4 now and would love to see it. Patty Jenkins, the director, greeted Karen, and she said, I want you and all those forwarding that have been trying hard all week to figure this out. We want her to see it too. Stand by. So she's trying to get this longtime Wonder Woman fan the ability to see Wonder Woman before it hits theaters. Now, Marvel has allowed this to happen with some of their movies, and there's been a lot of media coverage. Like I believe with the Force Awakens, they had a fan who got to see it before everybody else did. It was kind of a nice, bittersweet for all the Star Wars fans. However, last year, when a Batman fan wanted to see Batman vs. Superman under similar circumstances, we had a much different response from the media. What happened was that Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers allowed this fan to see Batman vs. Superman in the privacy of his own home, without any media buzz, without exploiting it on social networks, without going, hey, look, we have a cancer person here that got to see our movie. Go see our movie. We're really, really good. Good. Well, the person who originally posted this on social media, the friend of said fan, posted this on his Facebook page and Twitter. And I saved it for posterity to kind of give you what happened. I'll read it to you. It's come to my attention certain bloggers or quote-unquote journalists have taken to using the tragic news of Barry Henderson's Gates' death, the man at the center of the hashtag Batman for Bass campaign, where fans tried but did not have ample time to have Warner Brothers screen Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad for him. Now this is news to me. Suicide Squad as well. Before his death, end of parentheses, as a means to slur Warner Brothers and the creative powers behind those films for, and I quote, neglecting a dying man, ignoring a cancer patient, and a direct slight on Zack Snyder, quote, unsympathetic to dying Batman fans, unquote. This kind of exploitation of Batman's of a man's death to fuel a feeble, unfounded, and quite bizarre hate campaign against these movies, no less with the names of pages like my own and the likes of Caboose XLs, parentheses, who both helped push for this campaign and brought the updates around it out, including the sad news of his death, and parentheses. Attached is a really, really sickening. I'm reluctant to give any such sites public traffic, but can link those interested via private message if needed. Where were those sites when the campaign was being run? Exactly. The paragraph continues. The Batman vs. Superman and overall DC Expanded Universe hate bandwagon is bad enough. To learn it's been taken so far that a dying man's wishes and very tragic death, which prevented those wishes, is being exploited to drive this hate is beyond disgusting. It is extremely concerning given how this manipulates the memory of a man who simply wanted to see some movies before he passed and was unable to. To find that the campaign we all ran for his benefit and as a gesture of care for a fellow fan is being twisted and linked back here is equally concerning and unfounded. Please ignore and do not give any traffic to any such appalling articles. And do not, authors of such articles, if you can be called anything which even holds the tiniest shred of integrity, link back to this account or besmirch this poor man's memory simply to fuel your hate. It's repulsive. Rest in peace, Barry. So this was posted before the news was, broken out. Such a media outlet as The Independent that, the fan, Barry actually got to see the film. I just when I saw this post by Patty Jenkins, it just brought back memories of how hateful people can be just to have their brand, come on top with total disregard for the humans involved in such a dire time of need. But it also showed me that Warner Brothers usually comes to the aid of fans. They're very attentive and supportive of things like these. So it's kind of bittersweet, and we as a fans, as I've shown you, have come together to denounce hatred. Anyways, so hopefully that'll be a little bit more inspirational to everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this very, very lengthy and emotional episode. I was expecting myself to curse a lot, but quite frankly, I just wanted to get the point across. No, seriously, I mean, if you've seen the movie Network that talks about journalism, you have to get mad. I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.